Okay, I'm preparing to do the next alpha release of Tightener, so things are starting to come together and the puzzle pieces are starting to fit. So before I actually dive into it, I want to show a little bit of a picture to explain what is currently going on. So I've been integrating Tightener in a number of different contexts. Like for example, I have Tightener running as command line utilities, so which essentially have Tightener essentially as their core, like they're pretty much thin shells in C++ around a Tightener engine. Then I've also got Tightener as a plugin for InDesign Server or InCopy, so that is quite tightly integrated with InDesign, and Tightener can interact with ExtendScript as it is embedded in InDesign, or with UXPScript for the future, so when that becomes available. So this is a tight interaction, so Tightener can execute ExtendScript, ExtendScript can execute Tightener scripts, tickle scripts, Tightener can execute UXP scripts and vice versa. So, and then I have another version of the integration which is integrated into ExtendScript rather than being integrated into the app itself. So here the Tightener plugin is directly integrated into InDesign, whereas on the other hand, uh, here I have Tightener as a DLL integrated into the ExtendScript core engine, which is shared by a number of applications like Illustrator, InDesign, Photoshop, Adobe Premiere, and so on. So a number of applications, or sorry, it was After Effects, it might not be Premiere. But anyway, so the ExtendScript core is represented in a lot of different Creative Cloud applications, and I've integrated the Tightener DLL into that ExtendScript core. That means that automatically all these applications share a Tightener integration. Now, because the Tightener integration is done at a level that's not really integrated into the application, so Tightener is a few steps removed from the native application, unlike here where Tightener is a plugin and is tightly integrated with the native application. So I need something to actually give Tightener its event loop some time to run, and that's achieved by a CEP extension, which I called the Tightener Daemon. So that Tightener Daemon, you can launch it from any of those applications, and essentially all it will do is regularly execute the Tightener event loop, so allowing Tightener to run even though it's not really deeply integrated into the application. So all Tighteners interact with one another over a bus. So each Tightener here has a unique identifying string, like an address, if you will. So they can talk to one another. So, but that's all within the same computer. So essentially, the Tightener in the script runner can talk to the Tightener in InDesign, can talk to the Tightener in Illustrator, and so on and so on. And they can also, if necessary, we can launch a gateway Tightener, which is an application that then can interact with Tighteners that are remote. Now, if we don't use the Tightener gateway, then this is a closed system. So the computer is not exposed to the internet or outside interaction with Tightener unless we launch a gateway and have a gateway at the other end as well. So that's essentially that's the picture. So now I'll just go through a number of examples to show how that all works. So I've got a fair bit of new things since last video. So before anything else, I need to install Tightener. So this computer doesn't have Tightener at the moment. So what you normally do is you download a compressed file. So here I already have it downloaded, but you would download it from the URL provided. So you extract that zip file. Just double click it. So, and this works on Mac, on Windows, and on Linux. And so then you run the install command. So here on Mac, it's just install I can even double click it if I want to, so that's fine. So just double click it. So that's the install. So now Tightener is installed, so and I can essentially test that out by checking if my commands are available. cd tightener with an underscore. That should work, and that works. So that takes me to the tightener. So now the first thing I'm going to do is do copy config, which copies the default tightener config into my local configuration. So, and then I'm going to edit it just to show how this config looks. So this config is large and there's a lot of stuff in there, but part of the functionality is that it allows me to define what I mean by a certain name. So for example, there is a URL map which allows me to tell the computer, the tightener in all those applications, what do I mean when I say InDesign. So, and that's essentially a two-step process. It's first of all, there's like a shorthand, which is InDesign is actually a URL th, and in this case, I'm actually mapping the shorthand InDesign to a local copy of InDesign. But I can just as well, for example, say, no, I want InDesign to be mapped to a remote copy of InDesign server. So if I want to, I could, and I just have a more complicated expression here in that URL. So that's the first level. The URL map gives me an overall direction of where to find a certain application, and everyone's computers will be different. So, but in my case, I currently have InDesign mapped to my local InDesign. Now, this is a second shorthand. So this is InDesign on the local computer. So that's a coordinator. And then in this case, so you see there's a number of coordinators here. Here it says InDesign is currently mapped to a long coordinator string, and that's essentially the plugin version of InDesign. So for the time being, I'll just remap that and say like, yeah, I'm not going to use the plugin version of InDesign, I'm going to use the DLL version of InDesign. So, and this is a purely local thing. So essentially this config, first of all, tells me where locally or remotely I can find an application, and then purely locally it further maps certain words to certain applications, and that can be different. So the idea being, for example, if I mapped InDesign to, say, an InDesign server running on Freddy, which is a computer, so then this second mapping, I could actually tell on Freddy I want to do something like InDesign on Freddy. So I'm mapping InDesign to on Freddy InDesign. That second mapping is defined by the config.ini on Freddy. So there's like multiple configs. Every computer in the cloud that interacts with Tightener has its own config and can do its own local mapping of a keyword plus the remote mapping. So there's two steps of mapping from here, this computer, to wherever we want to go on another computer, and then within that computer there is another config that then maps to the local installed application. So I can easily switch. For example, in this case I'm switching to the DLL version of the Tightener. Right, so the next thing I need to do is install the ZXP for the Daemon, and that should be where is it, in plugins, CEP. So there's a Tightener Daemon. See, so I'm now working on this setup. So I'm opening up the Tightener Daemon. The Tightener Daemon is now installed in InDesign, in Photoshop, in Illustrator, and so on. So, and then if I start up InDesign, there is InDesign. So I can pick my extension, say I want to launch the Tightener Daemon. There it is. And then I can make this active. So, and now I have if I look at the picture again, so I have this set up. So I have InDesign, running the tightener daemon, which is active, which uses the ExtendScript core, which calls onto the tightener DLL to interact on the tightener bus. So this thing is now essentially listening on the tightener bus for things to do, and that might be scripts to run. So, and what I'll do now is I'll just go into my samples which come with the tightener. So we're in sample scripts in what I just decompressed. See, and I have a script called hello.jsx. So, and what I can do is run remote ExtendScript InDesign. This is, so I'm saying like I'm going to run an ExtendScript. The E stands for ExtendScript. Where am I going to run it? Well, I'm going to run it with InDesign, and this InDesign word is mapped to the actual DLL version of tightener running within InDesign, and that's all through the config. So the config.ini file decides where that word InDesign means the script to go, and then I want to run the script hello.jsx. Okay, and you see now I get InDesign says hello from hello.jsx.